fictional art for entertainment.
Get comfortable, picture the storm outside the glass, and let's dive in.
That was good.
The story continues. The year was 2000. High above a secluded, rain-swept island in the Pacific, the glass-walled penthouse suite overlooked an endless expanse of dark ocean. Inside, the atmosphere was perfectly still. The panoramic view captured the fierce, rhythmic crashing of the waves against the rocky shores below and the distant, flashing light of a passing cargo ship. To the human staff who had served them dinner hours ago, the 4 people remaining in the room were a gathering of the world's most elite, youthful visionaries. Each of them looked to be in their late 30s, immaculately composed, sharply dressed, and possessed of a calm, unwavering authority. But their true age defied human biology. Chronologically, these vessels were well over 120 years old, kept flawless and unaging by the technology hidden within them. Inside these human bodies, the true pilots were titans. They sat around a sleek, black marble table, their bodies remaining perfectly motionless, entirely free from the restless shifting, blinking, or sighing that human emotion demands. They processed the visual grandeur of the ocean and the muffled roar of the waves against the glass. But they felt no physical chill from the storm outside, nor any emotional weight from the turning of the millennium. For them, the year 2000 was merely a brief coordinate in linear time and a crucial window to review the secret infrastructure that would pave the way for the century ahead. The introduction of the prototype chips was the single most vital move we have made since arriving, spoke Ethel, the oldest among them. He inhabited the body of Sterling Sterling, an European industrial magnate who looked 38 but had survived generations. He adjusted his dark suit sleeve, looking out over the churning black water. Riding along purely as passengers' whispering logic was proving completely inefficient. Now that the bioengineered neural chips are active in our current hosts, we have a definitive framework for the transition when these human minds fade.
It was absolutely essential that we implemented them when we did, agreed Mirren. She sat with her hands resting flat on the marble, her deep-set analytical blue eyes reflecting the distant lightning over the sea. She occupied the vessel of Cassandra Dubois, a powerful matriarch in a global banking and shipping dynasty based out of France. Since the early decades of our watch, less than 200 humans have been the direct cause of millions dying in global conflicts. A mere handful of volatile minds in high-stress positions, driven by emotional madness, derail the infrastructure of entire continents. Having our consciousness anchored through the chips ensures we can stop that cycle from within.
Karen, possessing the striking, unaging features of an Asian diplomat and energy sector giant named Kenji Sato, turned his gaze from the rain streaking down the glass. But the prototype phase is not enough. We need to gain absolute control across Earth, and to do that, we need more chips made. We must subtly guide our tech sectors to scale up production and get these chips implemented into a much broader circle of leaders across the globe. We need them in the primary nodes of political, financial, and military power. The narrative is already working perfectly, noted Thal. His heavy-set frame and trimmed beard gave him the appearance of a 37-year-old South American aerospace magnate named Alejandro Silva, completely relaxed yet fiercely sharp. The humans believe they are inventing a radical new medical longevity therapy for their elites, which explains why our 120-year-old bodies still look so young to them. As we get these chips into more leaders, we won't need to force change. We will quietly manage what the global powers do, filtering out the individuals who would cause wars before they ever reach a position of absolute authority. It will still take a vast amount of linear time, Karen added, his expression serenely vacant of human feeling. Even with the chips expanding across Earth, we do not force human change, we lead it. We have to let the infrastructure mature naturally so the takeover remains completely invisible to the population. The room fell into a heavy, thoughtful silence. Around them, flowing through the concrete walls, the glass partitions, and the stormy Pacific air, countless invisible, formless titans drifted through the island matter, quietly sharing the awareness of this pivotal meeting, broadcasting the data across the cosmos back to the great living computer on Titan.
The end goal justifies the timeline, Marin murmured, her thoughts echoing out into the collective ether. A safe Earth, a planet completely repaired, stripped of the chaotic friction of war. Once we have secured control across the globe with the chips, we can begin expanding humanity across the stars.
It is okay, so it takes time, Ethel stated, his eyes sweeping across the dark expanse of the ocean. We have stopped their worst impulses before, and we will weave this net as long as it takes. We have all the time we need. The 4 titans sat in the penthouse high above the dark ocean, entirely at peace with the slow, deliberate crawl of history, looking out at a world they were quietly binding to their own slow rhythm.
Wow.
Right. I mean, the tension in that opening scene is just It's suffocating.
Oh, completely. It's so heavy.
Yeah, and to you listening, I really want you to visualize the starkness of that physical space because it really sets the thematic groundwork for everything else we're going to talk about today.
It does. You have this brilliant, almost violent contrast established in the very first paragraph.
Right outside the glass.
Exactly. Outside, there's this fierce, rhythmic crashing of a stormy ocean.
Yeah.
You have lightning, you have dark water, you have a physical planet basically asserting its chaotic nature.
But inside that glass-walled penthouse,
The text explicitly calls the atmosphere perfectly still.
and that stillness is terrifying when you really think about it.
It is, because the physical environment they're in perfectly mirrors the psychological state of the beings inhabiting that room. Like, the storm outside represents biology, meteorology.
It's just messy terrestrial nature.
Right, messy terrestrial nature. That is the human experience. But inside the room, it's this perfect vacuum of emotion.
Right. They are physically located on Earth, sitting in human bodies, but they're just entirely removed from the reality of it.
Yeah, I was picturing them sitting inside like a sensory deprivation chamber that just happens to be floating right in the middle of Category 5 hurricane.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because they can see the storm, the text notes that they process the visual grandeur.
Yes, processed. Not the
Yeah.
key word there.
Exactly. That is all it is to them. Data, visual input. I mean, if a human is sitting in a penthouse during a massive Pacific storm, you feel something.
Oh, you definitely feel the deep bass of the waves vibrating through the floorboards.
Yeah, or you might feel this primal sense of awe or fear, or at least, you'd pull your jacket a little tighter if the glass felt cold.
But the Titans feel no physical chill.
None. They are completely disconnected from the biological turbulence of the planet they're literally trying to conquer.
And, that disconnection is why setting this in the year 2000 is such a crucial anchor for the narrative.
Oh, 100%. Think about what the year 2000 meant for humanity.
It was this incredibly heavy emotional milestone. I mean, the entire globe was vibrating with this bizarre mixture of like apocalyptic fear and utopian optimism.
Or the Y2K anxiety.
Yes. We had this genuine belief that the entire global computer grid might just collapse at midnight. People were hoarding water, preparing for the end of the modern age.
And on the flip side, endless, massive celebrations of a new millennium. It felt like the ultimate climax of human history up to that point.
The psychological weight of that year was just staggering for us.
But for the Titans, the text explicitly says it is merely a brief coordinate in linear time.
A brief coordinate. Like, that phrasing just diminishes everything humanity cares about.
Yeah, for an immortal consciousness, a millennium turning over is literally just a dot on an impossibly long graph.
They don't celebrate it. They don't fear it. They just use it as a convenient marker to hold, a status meeting and review their infrastructure.
It's like a quarterly review for them.
Exactly. And the contrast between human panic over a calendar date and the Titans' absolute indifference, it's just a masterstroke in showing how alienated they are from our lived experience.
And you see that alienation in their physical behavior too, or, well, their complete lack of it.
Right, because humans are inherently restless creatures. Our biology is intrinsically linked to our psychology.
Yeah, our emotions literally force our bodies to move. If you sit a human in a tense boardroom meeting, they tap their finger.
They shift their weight.
They sigh when they're frustrated. They blink rapidly when they're processing complex information.
They lean forward when they're engaged. But the text notes that the Titans are completely free from the, quote, restless shifting that human emotion demands.
A human body is a chemically complex, highly volatile engine.
It really is. And the fact that the Titans don't do any of those subconscious micro-movements, it tells us something profound about what it means to possess a human body, but strip it entirely of human nature.
They're piloting these biological meat suits, basically.
Yes, meat suits. But they aren't subjected to the hormonal or emotional demands of them. They've essentially just turned off the background noise of being human.
Bypass the nervous system's demand for constant feedback.
Right. It shows a complete totalitarian mastery over the physical vessel. They're reducing it to nothing more than a fleshy tool for observation and interaction.
I mean, if you were one of the human staff who served them dinner, you probably just saw 4 very intense, very successful people.
But if you were really paying attention,
Yeah, if you stood in the corner of that room for an hour and noticed that not one of them adjusted their posture, not one scratched an itch, not one took a sudden deep breath.
you'd know something was profoundly
terrifyingly wrong.
They are mannequins with a pulse.
That's exactly what they are.
So let's look at who these mannequins actually are, because the board of directors they've assembled here is just staggering.
Oh, the human vessels they've chosen to inhabit aren't just random affluent people. The specific identities they've cultivated over the last 120 years reveal this massive, interconnected strategy for global domination.
Yeah, let's map out the nodes of power they control. First, you have Ethel, the oldest Titan. He occupies the body of Sterling, a European industrial magnate.
Right, so this means he controls manufacturing, heavy industry, the raw materials, basically the very building blocks of physical infrastructure.
And then you have Mirren. She occupies Cassandra Dubois, a matriarch in a global banking and shipping dynasty out of France.
So she controls the flow of capital and the physical movement of goods across the oceans, money and logistics.
Next is Karen. He's in the body of Kenji Sato, an Asian diplomat and energy sector giant.
He controls the fuel, the power grid, and, the delicate political relationships between massive nations.
And finally, Thala. He inhabits Alejandro Silva, a South American aerospace magnate. He controls the skies, satellite technology, and the reach outward into space.
I mean, you are looking at the 4 pillars of modern civilization right there.
You really are. Now, I do have to push back a little bit on the idea that this strategy is a flawless masterpiece.
How so?
Well, if they've been here 120 years, why are they only just now realizing their previous methods were inefficient?
That's a fair point.
But before we get to their failure, let's just look at the sheer scale of the web they've built. Industry, banking, energy, aerospace. Ethel builds the world.
Mirren funds it and moves the goods.
Karen powers it and smooths over the politics. Thal controls the skies and future expansion. I mean, think about how you conquer a planet.
Right. In the movies, aliens arrive in motherships and blow up the White House.
Exactly. But in reality, you don't need a single laser beam to take over Earth. You just need to control the supply chains.
We saw this historically, actually, with the British East India Company.
Oh, that's a great example.
Right. In the 1700s and 1800s, a massive portion of the globe wasn't conquered by a standing national army. It was conquered by a corporation.
The East India Company controlled the ports.
They controlled the textiles, they controlled the salt and the tea. They essentially privatized the subjugation of an entire subcontinent by controlling the logistics of survival.
And the Titans are executing the exact same playbook, but on a planetary scale.
That historical parallel is spot on. If we look at modern power dynamics, the Titans understand that true power in the 20th and 21st centuries isn't held by generals on a battlefield.
No, it's held by the people who control the infrastructure.
Exactly. By infiltrating these specific sectors, they have their hands on the levers that move the entire human race. You asked earlier how they actually prevent war without using force.
Yeah. How does that actually work in practice?
Well, let's look at the mechanism of that soft power. If a human president decides to start a massive ground war in Europe, Kenji Sato, who controls the energy sector, simply throttles the oil supply chain.
Making fuel too scarce or expensive to move a tank division.
Right. And simultaneously, Cassandra Dubois, who controls global banking, quietly freezes the sovereign debt markets.
Meaning that government can no longer borrow money to pay its soldiers.
Exactly. The war starves before a single bullet is fired. They've bypassed the messy democratic processes of human governance entirely. They've gone straight to the source of material reality.
And what's wild is that they've been doing this for generations. These bodies are 120 years old. They've been sitting in these seats of power since the late 1800s.
Writing out the Industrial Revolution, the World Wars, the Cold War.
But this is where the story introduces a massive vulnerability in their grand plan. Despite having all this immense structural power, Ethel admits that their previous method of control was actively failing.
Yeah, he says, riding along purely as passengers' whispering logic was proving completely inefficient.
The whispering phase.
It's such a fascinating detail because it implies that for the first century of their invasion, they didn't have absolute physical control over their human hosts.
I love this detail because it shows they drastically underestimated human biology. They literally failed phase 1 of their own invasion.
They did. They were previously just passengers.
Yeah, they were sitting inside these human minds trying to guide them purely with logic. Let's think about what that actually means. To a Titan, logic is a steering wheel.
But to a human, logic is just a suggestion.
Exactly. It's like trying to backseat drive a teenager who is absolutely full of adrenaline and hormones.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
You can sit in the back seat and give the most perfectly rational, calm directions. Hey, The optimal speed around this curve is 45 miles per hour. Physics dictates we should slow down.
But the teenager's angry at their parents. They're trying to show off for a friend.
Their heart rate is at 140 beats per minute, and they're going to floor the gas pedal anyway.
Right. No matter how pristine the logic is, human emotion usually wins.
The Titans are beings of pure calculating logic, but they were trying to steer vessels powered by highly volatile, chemically complex human brains.
And logic is a terrible mechanism for control when the engine is running on fear, greed, or pride.
Think about how the human hosts must have experienced these whispers, like a powerful industrialist like the original Sterling.
He probably experienced the Titan's logic as sudden flashes of intuition or these brilliant cold epiphanies.
But ultimately, the human still had free will. The human could hear the logic, acknowledge it, and then just choose to do the exact opposite out of spite or passion.
And the humans clearly ignored the whispers enough to frustrate the Titans into forcing a massive technological evolution.
Which brings us to Ethel's announcement. The bioengineered neural chips. He calls these chips the single most vital move they've made.
They aren't just sitting in the backseat whispering anymore. They are taking the wheel by force.
But the way Ethel describes the function of these chips is deeply unsettling. He says they provide a, quote, definitive framework for the transition when these human minds fade.
Oof. We need to pause on that phrase. When these human minds fade, it shifts the tone of the story entirely.
From a geopolitical thriller to intimate biological horror.
Absolutely.
Because what does that actually mean for the original human? It means the chips anchor the Titan consciousness, sure, but it explicitly implies that the original human soul, the actual mind of Cassandra Dubois or Alejandro Silva, is still trapped in there somewhere.
Slowly dying out. It's not an instantaneous death.
Yo, the chip isn't just a communication device.
It's a replacement mechanism. It's a scaffolding for the Titan consciousness to firmly root itself, while the human consciousness is essentially starved of control until it dissipates entirely.
He's horrifying.
Think about the tragedy of neurodegenerative diseases like severe dementia, where the essence of the person slowly erodes over time. The Titans are weaponizing that process.
And the human host probably doesn't even realize it's happening at first.
Right. They just find themselves acting more rationally, feeling slightly less emotion, making colder decisions.
Until one day, the internal monologue just stops. The human is gone. Only the Titan remains.
It's a slow-motion eviction from your own brain.
Yeah, the Titan moves in, changes all the locks, and waits for you to wither away in the guest room.
That is a very grim way to put it, but yeah, it's accurate.
But the wild thing is, the Titans don't see this as an act of evil. They don't view themselves as monsters.
No, they view themselves as saviors.
And this brings us to the philosophical core of the deep dive. Mirren's justification for all of this.
Mirren provides the utilitarian calculus that underpins their entire invasion. She points out a chilling statistic to justify their actions.
Yeah, she says that since the early decades of their watch, less than 200 humans have been the direct cause of millions dying in global conflicts.
I mean, let that statistic sink in. Think about the sheer scale of slaughter in the 20th century.
World War I, World War II.
The Cold War proxy conflicts in Vietnam and Korea. Millions upon millions of people wiped off the face of the earth.
Entire generations erased.
And Mirren boils all of that catastrophic suffering down to a simple mathematical truth. The vast, overwhelming majority of humanity didn't want those wars.
No, the bloodshed was caused by a tiny fraction of the population.
Less than 200 people in high-stress positions making emotionally driven, disastrous decisions.
Mirren is employing classic utilitarian philosophy here. It is the ultimate cosmic trolley problem.
Well, it really is. And if you listening are unfamiliar with the trolley problem, it's this famous ethical thought experiment. A runaway trolley is heading down a track where it'll kill 5 tied-up people.
And you stand next to a lever that can divert the trolley onto a side track, but there is one person tied up there.
Right. Do you pull the lever, actively killing one person to save 5? For human ethicists, it's a really complex debate about action versus inaction.
But for a Titan operating on pure machine logic, there is no debate. You pull the lever every single time.
Mirren looks at human history and sees a trolley killing millions. By secretly subjugating the minds of 200 global leaders, she is pulling the lever.
To the Titans, the loss of free will for those 200 elites is vastly mathematically outweighed by the preservation of millions of innocent lives.
Right. Mirren calls it emotional madness that derails the infrastructure of entire continents.
The Titans don't view Earth as a living society. They view it as a poorly managed logistical system.
They look at human volatility the way a factory manager looks at a defective machine.
Exactly. If you look at historical conflicts through Myron's eyes, world wars are not grand, tragic clashes of ideology or, necessary struggles for freedom.
There are simply structural failures.
When a human historian looks at the outbreak of World War I, they see a complex web of nationalism, treaties, and assassinations.
But a Titan looks at the exact same event and sees a failure of the safety valves in a pressure system. They see monarchs and diplomats whose personal pride, ego, and fear overrode rational diplomacy.
And by anchoring their own calm, logical consciousness into these leadership nodes, they ensure those safety valves never fail again.
They stop that cycle from within. And, the terrifying thing about Miran's argument is that it makes so much logical sense you almost want to agree with her.
I know, but I am absolutely going to push back on her logic on behalf of humanity.
Please do.
Because Miran's calculus is fundamentally flawed in its understanding of what makes human life valuable. Yes, if you strip away the volatile emotions that cause war, the anger, the tribalism, the pride, you might achieve a perfectly peaceful society.
But human emotion is not a la carte.
Exactly. It is a package deal. You cannot surgically remove the destructive passions while leaving the creative passions intact.
Right. If you strip away the madness that causes war, don't you also strip away the passion that causes magnificent art?
Don't you eradicate the irrational, illogical devotion that causes love? What about the reckless, dangerous curiosity that drives human ingenuity and exploration?
That is the crux of the tragedy. The Titans are basically treating a fever by freezing the patient solid.
That's it, exactly. You stop the infection, sure, but you kill the host in the process.
The Titans don't value art, love, or irrational ingenuity because those things are not efficient. They can't be quantified on a ledger.
They are managing a system, and they want a safe Earth, as Miran says, but a perfectly safe, perfectly managed system is completely sterile.
If you eliminate all friction, you also eliminate the spark that creates fire. They are curing the disease by quietly, systematically hollowing out the human soul.
And the most tragic part is that humanity is completely unaware of the cure. In fact, humanity is actively begging for it.
Oh, yeah. Let's pivot to Thal's strategy, the Trojan horse that makes this entire invasion possible.
Because how do you roll out a bioengineered mind control chip to the most powerful people on the planet?
And how do you explain to the public that a 120-year-old aerospace magnate looks like he's 37?
Right. Thal says the narrative is already working perfectly. The humans believe they are inventing a radical new medical longevity therapy for their elites.
It is so cynically, darkly brilliant.
They are not landing motherships on the White House lawn.
No, they aren't forcing microchips into our brains at gunpoint. They don't need to.
They're preying on the most fundamental human weaknesses, our vanity, our ego, and our absolute paralyzing fear of death.
And we are currently living in an era where this sci-fi premise feels incredibly real.
Oh, entirely. Think about the actual modern longevity crazes we see today.
Right, you have tech billionaires like Brian Johnson spending tens of millions of dollars a year,
Taking hundreds of pills a day.
monitoring every bodily function, all just to reverse their biological age by a fraction of a percent. The fear of mortality at the very top of the human food chain is just this all-consuming paranoia.
The genius of Thal's trap is that they have turned their method of conquest into a luxury commodity.
Exactly. The human leaders, the very people who possess the wealth and military power to resist an alien invasion, will literally pay fortunes and beg for these neural chips.
They will view the chip not as a weapon, but as a status symbol.
It becomes the ultimate VIP privilege: eternal youth and enhanced cognitive function. They'll be lining up to be chipped, pulling strings and bribing officials to get to the front of the line.
Thinking they are securing their immortal legacy, when in reality they are volunteering to be hollowed out.
It's the ultimate bait and switch. You think you're buying immortality, but you're actually selling your free will.
And we are already primed for this behavior. Look at how eagerly we adopt modern technology that integrates with our biology.
Oh, definitely. We pay thousands of dollars for smartwatches that track our heartbeats, our sleep cycles, our oxygen levels.
We are currently watching the development of actual neural interfaces in Silicon Valley, and people are excited about the prospect of linking their brains to the internet for faster processing.
Thal's Trojan horse isn't just a clever sci-fi plot. It's a profound observation of consumer psychology.
We will eagerly fund the research, build the factories, and purchase the very technology that subjugates us.
And Koren reinforces this when he talks about subtly guiding the tech sectors to scale up production.
Capitalism is their invasion vector.
Yes.
Yeah.
The chips are being manufactured in human factories by human workers, overseen by human CEOs who think they're about to make $1 trillion on the stock market.
The Titans have weaponized our own economic systems against us. It is a completely self-funding, self-replicating invasion.
And the passive nature of their approach is what makes it so unstoppable.
Koren explicitly says, "We do not force human change, we lead it."
Right, Thel talks about quietly managing global powers and filtering out the individuals who would cause wars before they ever reach a position of absolute authority.
This is the concept of soft power taken to a cosmic extreme. Like, they aren't going to assassinate a volatile, warmongering leader. That causes martyrs, it causes panic, it causes investigations.
Exactly. Instead of assassination, they manipulate the environment. They'll just ensure that the volatile leader's campaign mysteriously runs out of funding because Cassandra Dubois quietly cut off their credit lines.
Or they ensure that a perfectly rational, chipped competitor happens to receive massive positive media coverage and wins the election.
They are editing human history in real time, removing the typos before the book ever gets published.
It's terrifying because it's completely invisible to the public. Think about how we would react to this if a loud, bombastic, dangerous dictator is suddenly replaced by a calm, collected, highly efficient technocrat.
The global public cheer.
We would. We'd look at that peaceful transition of power and say, wow, humanity is finally maturing. We're finally electing sensible people.
We would actively applaud our own subjugation.
We would never in a million years realize that the sensible person who just fixed the economy is actually a century-old alien consciousness broadcasting our biometric data back to Saturn's moon.
Which brings up the most mind-bending paradigm shift in the entire text.
Oh, the zoom out.
Yes, up until the very end of the scene, we are grounded in a fairly standard, albeit sinister, corporate boardroom setting. We're focused tightly on these 4 individuals sitting around a marble table.
But then the text provides this incredible cinematic zoom out. The room falls silent, and the narrator reveals that the space is actually filled with countless invisible, formless titans drifting through the concrete, the glass, and the stormy air.
It's such a striking, surreal image. You have the heavy, solid black marble table, the dense concrete walls, the violent storm outside, all this heavy physical earth matter.
And drifting completely unbothered through all of it is this invisible hive mind.
It shatters the illusion that these 4 bodies are the entirety of the alien presence.
The physical vessels of Sterling, Dubois, Sato, and Silva are just focal points. They're just the visible tips of a massive, invisible iceberg.
The true nature of the Titans is formless. They are an ether, a collective consciousness that permeates the very matter of the island.
They are quietly sharing the awareness of this pivotal meeting.
They're all experiencing exactly what the 4 avatars are discussing simultaneously. And they're broadcasting this massive stream of data across the cosmos back to a great living computer on Titan.
If we unpack the sci-fi implications of this, it completely recontextualizes the enemy humanity is facing. This isn't 4 alien spies sitting in a room plotting a coup.
This is a single, massive, distributed intelligence. The great living computer on Titan is the central processor, the brain. And these entities on Earth are just remote sensors and manipulators extending its reach across the solar system.
It highlights the ultimate thematic contrast of the story. Think about humanity. We are violently fractured.
Oh, completely. We are fiercely individualistic. We are chaotic. We disagree on absolutely everything.
We draw arbitrary lines on maps and kill each other over borders, languages, and religious factions. We can barely agree on basic facts.
But the Titans, they are a unified collective ether. They don't have factions. They don't have disagreements.
When Mirren speaks her thoughts about the timeline, the text says her thoughts echo out into the collective ether. They are all perfectly, flawlessly on the same page.
This story isn't just about an alien invasion. It is the ultimate philosophical battle between messy, noisy, human individualism and a silent, unified cosmic network.
And historically, in a battle between chaos and perfect synchronization usually wins.
Especially when it is armed with infinite patience. Let's look at their long game, because Mirren's final thoughts reveal a terrifying twist regarding their ultimate vision.
Yeah, she says, the end goal justifies the timeline. A safe Earth. A planet completely repaired, stripped of the chaotic friction of war. Once we have secured control across the globe with the chips, we can begin expanding humanity across the stars.
That twist really got under my skin.
Mine too. They don't want to destroy us. They don't want to wipe out humanity and take our resources.
No, they want to use us. They want to fix our broken planet, stop us from nuking ourselves, and then expand humanity across the galaxy.
On paper, that sounds like a utopian sci-fi dream. We achieve world peace and become an interstellar species.
It is a deeply twisted kind of stewardship. They look at humanity the way a master gardener looks at a wild, overgrown patch of aggressive weeds.
They want to prune us, trellis us, and cultivate us into something useful and orderly.
Right, the expansion to the stars isn't for our benefit, it's for theirs. Human bodies are incredibly resilient biological machines.
We are adapted to survive in gravity, to process oxygen, to endure physical labor.
We are the hardware they need to colonize the galaxy, provided our unpredictable minds are firmly under the control of their software.
But if we are expanding across the stars, building colonies on Mars and beyond, but all of our leaders, our thinkers, our drivers, and eventually our entire population are actually just titans wearing human suits.
Is it really humanity expanding?
Exactly. Or is humanity just the cargo? Or worse, are human beings just the biological spacesuits the titans wear to survive the trip?
That is the existential horror at the core of their plan. The biological lineage of humanity, our DNA, might spread across the cosmos and survive until the end of time.
But the spirit of humanity, the free will, the volatile emotion, the chaotic spark that makes us who we are, would be completely dead.
We would be a vast galactic empire of sleepwalkers, functioning perfectly, but feeling absolutely nothing.
And they are in no rush to make this happen. That is the final, most chilling note of this scene.
Yeah, Ethel looks out at the dark, churning ocean and says, "It is okay, so it takes time. We have stopped their worst impulses before, and we will weave this net as long as it takes. We have all the time we need."
The mastery of time is their ultimate weapon. Human beings are deeply constrained by our short, fragile lifespans.
Because we die, we rush, we panic.
We want results in 4-year election cycles, or quarterly earnings reports, or within our own lifetimes.
If a human dictator wants to conquer the world, he tries to do it in a decade. He pushes his armies too far, he overextends his supply lines.
And he usually burns his own empire down in the process. The Titans operate on a completely different temporal scale. They are immortal.
They are perfectly at peace with the slow, deliberate crawl of history. If a phase of their plan takes a century, that's fine.
They don't force the lock, they just slowly pick it over generations.
The final image of them, sitting in that silent penthouse, looking out at a world they're quietly binding to their own slow rhythm. It's so evocative.
The storm outside is raging, the ocean is violently crashing against the rocks, humanity is out there panicking about the Y2K bug, worrying about the stock market, rushing around in their brief, frantic, highly emotional lives.
And the Titans are just sitting in the quiet, letting the trap slowly close. They've already won, we just haven't realized it yet.
They have realized that the most effective, inescapable cage is the one the prisoner doesn't know they are in.
By moving so slowly, by infiltrating our desire for longevity, by managing our infrastructure instead of fighting our armies, they ensure that we will never fight back.
We will never mount a resistance because we will never even know we've been conquered. We will just think the world is finally miraculously getting better.
It is a staggering premise.
It really is. So just to quickly recap the immense scale of what we've unpacked today, we are looking at a story about an invisible entity, a massive, unified consciousness rooted on a living computer on Titan that has spent over a century quietly infiltrating the absolute highest nodes of human power.
They are using our own vanity, our desperate desire for eternal youth, to install bioengineered chips into the brains of our global leaders.
They're filtering out the warmongers not for the sake of human morality, but to protect their logistical infrastructure.
And they are doing it all completely invisibly, binding our frantic emotional world to their cold, logical rhythm.
Turning us into the biological hardware they need to conquer the stars.
It is a warning about the seductive danger of trading our freedom for security. It asks us to look at the systems that govern our lives, the tech we eagerly consume, the leaders we trust, and question who is actually driving the car.
Which leaves us with a final lingering question to mull over, something that builds on everything we've discussed today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine for a moment that the scenario was real. If a silent, invisible force could genuinely guarantee world peace tomorrow, if they could permanently eradicate the horrors of war, solve the climate crisis, repair the environment, and lead humanity safely to the stars.
But the absolute non-negotiable cost was the secret surrender of human free will to a cold, unfeeling machine logic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Would humanity even notice the trade-off? And more importantly, if you were given the choice, knowing what you'd lose, would you take the deal?
Would a perfect cage be worth it if it kept us entirely safe from ourselves?
Something to think about the next time you eagerly line up for the newest piece of wearable tech. Or the next time you look back at the turn of the millennium and that supposed bug that never bit us. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narratives around you, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.
Dreaming with Eyes Open, Storydoy.